To spot BA students on campus. Number one, if they are dressed like baddies, just know from the get-go, those are BA students. That is their signature move. Number two, if they look like they're living their best lives, if they're always talkative, laughing and smiling on campus, you know very well they are BA students. Because they don't know the struggle of getting 2% and having to keep it moving because you have another test tomorrow. Last but not least, if they're carrying a bag that looks empty, trust and believe those are BA students because the only thing that bag has is weed or hubbly stuff.
Hi, darling. Welcome back. If you've ever been to a university or are currently a university student, I'm pretty sure you've heard these things being said about humanities students, particularly BA general students, where people are saying, oh, you must have a lot of free time because you're studying such a simple degree, or that BA students are just always chilled on campus, being autistic and being lazy, or the fact that we are just a little low IQ, that our degrees are useless or not important to the work industry. And on today's video, I want us to have this conversation because I've seen this rhetoric a lot of times in South Africa where there is an emphasis on STEM subjects. What I want us to do on today's video, I want to talk about the advantages of both humanities and STEM, the disadvantages as well. And then I want to talk about the key differences and how we can implement or use humanities in real world situations. I will use relevant examples to the South African context. I believe right now we are actually in a time where we need more critical thinkers. As much as, yes, my country prioritizes science, technology, engineering, mathematics, I understand why, but they are leaving behind humanities students. There's a lack of opportunities for humanities students. And obviously, the stereotype that we are useless, it makes people who would want to pursue a humanities degree feel like, why even bother? Like, people will not follow their passions, because I know some people who didn't follow their passion for humanities because of all these opinions about humanities. What I want to talk about firstly are the advantages and disadvantages of both these faculties in university. Please be mindful that this is not going to be extensive. This is a brief overview. So we're going to go through this very quickly before I get to the meat of the conversation. So when it comes to the advantages of humanities subjects, let's be honest. The policies, the governance, the human rights that a lot of people have are because of humanities. Humanities contributes the most to governance and policy. And what do I mean by humanities? For someone who doesn't know humanities, humanities are human culture centered subjects. These are subjects like philosophy, history, media, anthropology, sociology, and so on and so forth. It's subjects that focus on human culture, human morality. How do we deal with understanding human behavior, human ethics, human rights? It's basically, just think of it as a subject that focuses on humans, on the humanistic approach. And I'm not to say that science doesn't. STEM, we already know. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. It encompasses doctors, your mechanical engineers, your scientists, everyone, like your mathematicians, your actuaries, accountants even. What I want to emphasize is that both have advantages. So if you are a humanities student, some of the advantages is in governance, in policy, legal reform, communication. I know people like to say that humanities is not important and critical thinking. Like, I realize that critical thinking, guys, people don't understand critical thinking. Humanities critical thinking literally targets multiple spaces at the same time, whereas STEM-centered critical thinking is about finding the precise answer, finding the simple singular answer, whereas humanities is about touching the sociological aspects, touching the economic aspects, touching. Basically, humanities builds its argument from taking pieces of each approach, whether that be sociology, anthropology, philosophy, psychology, history. We draw a lot of our answers from different faculties. So you wouldn't have you wouldn't have some of the rights that you have if it wasn't for people in the humanities faculty. And yes, government reform, empathy. One thing about humanities, it emphasizes empathy, whereas STEM has its own advantages. Let's be honest, let's give STEM its flowers, guys. Vaccines, HIV and AIDS research, tuberculosis, cholera, medication, science and technology, like the cars we use, the buildings we live in, the architecture around us. STEM has an amazing contribution. I will always give STEM its flowers. STEM has an amazing contribution. A lot of illnesses that would have killed people 1,000 years ago don't kill us because we have things like antibiotics, like things that we take for granted. STEM has also higher employability, higher salaries. Like if you are in STEM, we know the advantages is that you can finish your degree now in 3 years or 4 years and earn something way higher than a humanities graduate who even has a PhD. So there are advantages monetary to working in STEM. So I will always give STEM its flowers, but I don't see the same thing being done for like humanities, where it's just say, oh, it's a useless subject. Guys, a lot of the things we appreciate about our country are actually from humanistic approaches, humanities approaches. The freedoms, the rights, our global acclaim comes from humanities. Like South Africa is put on the map by our arts and culture. It's put on the map by our theater. It's put on the map by our music industry, our actors. Those are the people who have put us on the map. The humanities, yes, you might say it's useless. That's an opinion. But that's not the most important aspect for today's video. I want us to move on to the disadvantages. Humanities has disadvantages, obviously, like employability is an issue. The inability to have standardized kind of formulas or theories. Humanities is very theoretical, so we use a lot of different theories when it comes to research and all that. Also, just slower career progression. Humanities has lower employability, especially in the South African context. It's way more difficult to get a job as a humanities graduate, whereas the disadvantages of STEM are the fact that it is high intensive work. You will put in your hours, you will put in your time. It's very intensive work. And there is a constant need to upskill, like science students, medical students, whatever, technology, gadgets and all that. You are always having to keep up to date with new kind of techniques or medical techniques. You have to keep up with the new ways, the new medications, you have to keep up with the new gadgets. So while it could be a disadvantage in the sense that you have to constantly upskill yourself, you're constantly learning. So you cannot just sit down and be like, I know everything. So you have to constantly upskill if you are in the STEM industry. So what are the differences between STEM and humanities? Humanities differs from STEM in a myriad of ways, but I'm going to do a brief overview of some of the things that I've noticed. Like, humanities is qualitative. So by qualitative, it means that the methods of us to collect information focuses on humans. We focus on people's opinions. We collect people's opinions. We try to collect as much as we can get, like emotional information. Humanities emphasizes empathy, things like lore, things like ethics, things like philosophy, history. We use history to find out how do we not repeat the things that happened in the past. And literally right now we're in a time where history repeats itself. Like, I always hate when people say history is not important as a subject. History repeats itself. Now we are going through a time whereby, look at America, things go from a point in history where things are liberal, and then they also go back to a time in history when things become more conservative. If you look at things like the Renaissance era, things were more liberal in a sense, and then there was obviously pullback back to conservatism. So it literally teaches us how to center human beings, how to understand human behavior, human culture, how to make decisions that do not impact human beings in negative ways. Humanities is the reason we have global awareness of different cultures. We learn about different cultures, we learn about their different moralities and how to behave or do or implement strategies that do not disturb the culture, the society, the communities in that spaces. Diplomacy is a humanities subject. Politics is humanities. And right now, things are heated in the political arena. So, what about STEM? STEM is quantitative. This basically means numbers, calculating measurements, things that are measurable. When it comes to STEM subjects are quantifiable. STEM subjects are precise. When you are doing STEM subjects, there's only one answer to a question. There's a huge formula that you have to follow to reach that one answer. So if I could put it in simple terms, STEM is more black and white thinking, whereas humanities is more gray area thinking. But, darlings, this video is not I basically didn't make this video to say which one is better or which one is worse. I'm saying this video to advocate for more appreciation of humanities subjects in the South African context. We are not appreciated in humanities as humanities graduates, like employment, we know this. We are seen as a useless subject, but I will show you right now current scenarios that show me that we need humanities subject or humanistic approaches or consulting with humanities graduates when it comes to certain decisions in the country. Here is a video.
The Minister of Education said that those desk bags are only 2 kgs. Mind you, these are 7-year-old children who are probably trekking to school, knowing the context of poverty and education in the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, where these desk bags were being given. Like, I don't think it's healthy. Even the way that they were dragging their mama clapping. I always say this, upper class South Africans can live without being politically aware and class conscious because of the urban planning of our cities. So they can ignore poverty, or they can come and be saviors in poverty-stricken places and think that, people should just be grateful to them because they even cared. But the level of care that they have is so lackluster, and it damages people. It's going to damage those kids' bones in the long term. Weren't we already speaking about how poverty and urban planning makes people short in South Africa? Or the sleep deprivation that is induced by the fact that Black South Africans, poor South Africans, have to trek and travel from far distances to get to good schools or to get to the city center. And when you're looking at these bags, it looks like a coffin. I'm sorry, that thing is the same size as those children's bodies. Mind you, it was already an issue. You know those bags, there's a similar make in the Model C schools, but it's not a desk. I don't know, it's just a bag, man. And then our parents used to drag it for us, or if we dragged it, it was like just like from the waiting area from aftercare, then to our cars. But it's like 300 meters, not 2 kilometers. You get, yeah.
So, this my desk situation in South Africa, whereby I guess the Department of Education sent out tables. I don't know what to call them. They're like tables that convert into a chair and a lamp and a table for the children. I think it was grade 1 children in different schools in rural South Africa, whereby they basically donated these, and a lot of the uproar were on the McDonald's branded ones. And I'm just like, guys, literally, it's not only McDonald's. Like, there was different companies that also branded the tables. I don't know how to call it, a desk. There are many companies, South African companies, like I think I've seen Old Mutual, I've seen Cell C, and this is not to just basically say there's anything wrong with the design. I think the design is absolutely intelligent, but as a temporary situation, not as something that the kids, I was just like, you can tell that the person who made these decisions is not a humanities student. You can tell this person didn't have, like, you can just see, like, there's no empathy in the implementation of this solution. If you understood just how much you have to, before you create any solution for a problem, you have to also think about it as a human product, something that will be consumed by human beings. Why are you creating a product as a solution, but you're actually creating more problems for me? Like, these kids have to carry around these huge bags. Basically, they're already living in the rural area. Life is already hard, but you're also making me go to school. You're making it such an inconvenience already. We already know how rural kids in South Africa struggle. Like, they have to cross rivers at times. They have to travel long distances because there's no infrastructure. And now I must carry this huge bag, this huge thing that is weighing about, I don't know, someone said 2 kgs. You can correct me on that. You can just tell this wasn't a humanities-centered approach. This was a business-centered approach. This was a numbers, quantitative. It was about the numbers. And I was just sad. I was like, if they had actually consulted people with kind of the experiences in humanities, they would have understood that in order to create a solution, you have to be multidisciplinary. You have to consult not only with business people, not only the technology people, the science people. You have to consult with humanities people, because at the end of the day, the product goes out to who? To human beings. How do you create something that doesn't inconvenience the kids? I know that South Africa doesn't care, especially our government doesn't care about humanities. It's no surprise that the Johannesburg City Library is closed. This is an example of the fact that people don't care about humanities. I'm like, you are creating business solutions to a problem that could be solved just by actually creating the proper structures that would have more longevity. These tables will never have longevity. These desks will not have longevity. If you understood the broad ideas that come with implementing such a solution. The kids live in rural areas. There's crime in South Africa. Kids are also kids. Kids will lose these tables. Kids will break these tables at some point. Like, there's so many things. Why are you making the kids' life inconvenient instead of just building libraries? Like the fact that we have libraries that are closed, they are not creating the structures that are needed to actually make life for human beings more convenient. That's what I mean when I say there's no humanities centered approach there. It's just like business decision. There's no reason why we have to have a closed library in Johannesburg, and there's no reason why you can't build libraries in the rural areas for the kids to study in. These kids don't have to carry the burden of education where they have to carry these huge luggages home. Build libraries in rural areas, build proper schools whereby the kids can go and study after school if home is not a conducive environment. That is a solution with longevity. I'm just like, guys, as much as you can say humanities people are not or are useless or our subjects are useless, these are examples of the need for critical thinkers. I was even shocked when people were saying the Rwanda situation and Ramaphosa, when people were saying, now we should just fight, we must just fight Rwanda. I'm like, are you serious? That's why I knew that people are not critical thinkers. You do realize that war, if you're going to just say let's fight, you do realize that war has economic implications, social implications, cultural implications, and psychological implications. Humanities students, we deal with collecting data from all these multiple points of views. If you create war, economic decline, there's going to be trauma passed on from generation to generation. There's going to be a cultural shift. There's going to be a lot of changes. That's when I'm like, guys, people don't think. Obviously not everyone, not everyone, but I'm just like, STEM people sometimes, not all of them, they remove the empathy aspect when it comes to implementing solutions. It is just numbers, it is just statistics. And this is not to say they are not important. They are absolutely important. And humanities is also an absolutely needed subject, especially the core components of it. So I do believe that these industries can work together. I loved this quote from the former CEO of Apple, which reads, "It is technology married with the liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the results that make our heart sing." This quote by Steve Jobs just emphasizes the importance of a human-centered approach when we create anything from AI to technology. These industries actually speak and harmonize with each other. And I'm hoping through this video that maybe it enlightened at least one person about the importance of different disciplines in the South African context. And low-key, I hope one day that humanities students can get some of similar opportunities in the South African context like STEM students. So what is your opinion? If you got to this point in the video, darling, please leave a book in the comment section, a book emoji in the comment section. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.